Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll go ahead and begin with the question and answer portion of the program again. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma ameen. While we have Dr. Abdul Fattah here, I wanted actually to just, see if we can cover a few of the things. I know there were a number of people that are asking about the experiences in Palestine for the Palestinians that are there inside the refugee camp, and Dr. Abdul Fattah touched upon some of that during his talk. So I'm going to actually just ask Sabri to moderate some questions, inshallah, while we're conducting this. If you don't have any paper, but if you have other questions that you'd like to send, we'll open it up, inshallah, in a few minutes. If you have questions that you want to send via paper, please do that. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I had a few questions I wanted to lead Dr. Abdul Fattah with. MashaAllah, he's a very humble person. I think I wanted to just, being there, I wanted to just note some of the things that I saw in my eyes I wanted to kind of speak to, inshallah. So, first question, Doctor. Can you please enlighten everybody on how many children you serve, both in Aida itself and then also with your mobile unit? And give a little bit of detail about what that mobile unit does, where the types of places it goes, and the types of children specifically that it serves, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Mobile Youth for Resistance and Play Bus program are two programs that are mobile, so they go all over the West Bank, in refugee camps, in villages, in parts of the cities. The programs of Ar-Ruwad in education and culture and arts within the building of Ar-Ruwad serve between 6,000 to 8,000 a year, 8,000 children, and around 1,000 adults, women and men, and of course youth. These are the different programs within the year, within the Ar-Ruwad in Aida refugee camp, hosting people from outside the camp as well, so it's not exclusive for the camp. From outside the camp, the mobile programs serve about 45 to 50,000 children and youth. And the mobile programs, whether it's training of the trainers in theater, music, photography, video, and so on, or the Play Bus programs where we manufacture games that go to kindergarten, schools, or just put them in the streets for children just to have fun, to play. The aim of this part is hopefully to build a workshop where we can manufacture games with Palestinian Arab identity on one side, but also games that help in education, where children can be educated in having fun somehow, and not, as I said, be dictated to memorize and just follow the orders and study for the exams, and nothing happens afterwards.
The other thing you mentioned was the wall, and you mentioned the incursions. Just from a perspective, imagine this Adam Center is the Aida camp. It's about the same size, 10 acres. Sugarland, the road Sugarland would be the wall. And should I put a picture of the wall, please? The wall that he's referencing isn't a 7, 8-foot wall. It's a 30-foot wall, and it has sniper towers pointing down at the camp, at these children. And what Dr. Abdul Fattah does is when there's problems by that wall, he pulls these children into his school, into his center, and has activities that deviate away from the problems that are happening at the wall, and gives them an alternative that's creative, that enlightens them, that also buffers them from the reality of the situation where they are. The other thing that's important is if you see on the picture on the left, there's an open amphitheater next to the wall. And there's a story behind that. In that amphitheater, they hosted the Pope Benedict, 2008. 2009, they hosted the Pope. The Pope came to Aida camp, and they performed for the Pope. And they played on that wall, on the illegal separation apartheid wall. They prayed, they danced, and they played, and they had a performance, and they they really enriched the spirit of the Palestinians with it. So can you just tell me a little bit about the wall, the history of the wall, why it's there, why it's on fire in that picture we're looking at, and some of the things that you've seen with the wall, and also specifically what's on the other side of that wall, what was there before that wall was there?
The wall officially, the first images filtered about this illegal wall were in 1996, 1997. And trying to take the region of Mosque of Bilal ibn Rabah, which was depicted after the occupation of 1967 as Rachel Tomb, and became a synagogue and then a military camp, in fact. It started as security zone, as they say, or security barrier. And of course, little by little, it was discovered that it's not about security, because until today, even building 2/3 of the wall, actually, since 2002, it started with barbed wires, and then in 2005, it was erected with these blocks of cement that goes from 6 to 12 meters high, depending on the place, with towers of snipers, as you have seen, and cameras of surveillance, and infrared detectors for movement, and so on. Extended normally about 760 kilometers long, but with the different demonstrations and popular resistance action against this illegal wall, Palestinians have managed to deviate in some areas, but still it took about half of the West Bank. So when people build a security wall, normally they build it on borders, defined borders, but there it was more to take all the water resources, all the aquifers, all the fertile lands, maximum geography, as they say, and minimum demography. So it has engulfed a lot of areas. When they talk about two-state solution, it was supposed to be 22% for West Bank and Gaza, and now the 22% have shrunk. Maybe you can see the four maps, Chad. It shrank into 8.3% actually. And so when they talk about two-state solution, I don't know where they see two states in this proposal. And so, as you see, the development of the continuous confiscation, annexation, colonization process, from 1946, Jewish properties were 6% in Palestine, whether they were Jewish Palestinians or those who immigrated in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The partition plan of the UN gave Jews 55% of Palestine. And so, of course, at that time, Palestinians refused, Arabs refused. And so, the 1948 war, the Zionists autoproclaimed themselves as a state and occupied 78% of the land. And this was negotiated, what they call borders of 67. But you probably know that there was never borders for this Israel. And this was the Armistice Line in 1948, which occupied later on in 1967. And until today, Israel does not have any defined borders and any defined constitution. So in this sense, until today, there is no borders. And so they continued even after what they call Oslo peace process. It continued, and the occupation continued, and the annexation of land continues, and the building of the colonies, illegal colonies according to every law in the world, continues. And so, actually, we are talking about 8.3% under the umbrella of the Palestinian Authority, which officially does not have any authority on anything. Because even President Abbas, if he wants to go from area A to area B, he needs a permit from the Israelis. So every movement of Palestinians is controlled by Israeli permits, and we have no control on anything. So actually the wall is supposed to be, according to Israelis, about security in the beginning, And then even Israelis have written that it's not about security, it's about taking more lands, it's about creating new realities on the ground, it's about creating realities that the Palestinians will not be able to go opposite to that, because it's not realistic anymore. Like the right of return for Palestinian refugees, they say it's not realistic. And for us, we say we don't care about realities on the ground, because the realities on the ground do not erase the rights of people, whether they are created by the occupation or whoever. So the right is a right, and Palestinians cannot just get used to this continuous occupation and say, we just give up. We don't give up.
So one other point is this wall is not a straight wall. It's a 1,000-mile long wall. As you can tell by some of these pictures, it zigzags through. On the other side of the wall, directly opposite where the camp is.
You can put the film,
Yeah.
images of the film. Images of the film.
So right opposite the wall is actually farmland.
It's in.
And there was a big park, the only green space that the refugees had access to. The other thing I want to talk about also is to get through the wall, there isn't a door. You have to go through checkpoints. What would normally be a 10-minute bus ride from Bethlehem to Al-Quds took us almost 2 hours to go, because we had to circumvent the wall and go through essentially a cage. I think we're going to watch a little bit of the video here just to give you an idea of what an incursion actually is. This is in the camp, actually right outside of the camp, going through Bethlehem.
So
just after the invasion of 2002, and as you see, the first stage of the building of this illegal wall was through
Barbed wires. And so this process, like 3 meters high, 3 meters wide, and 3 meters deep in the ground.
And this is how it happens. The Israeli soldiers are in the
Towers.
of the snipers, and then they come in the camp, and the confrontation continues. Targeting water containers
They are one of their continuous actions, because
So that's his brother's
water
house.
is life.
somehow, and digging through the walls, passing from one house
To the other. And that means that they take a row of houses
and they pass digging
from one house to the other in direct line.
And this is the school, the UN school. And you see the impact of bullets even
On the school itself. It's a UN school, so normally it's protected.
but yet we have it. And on the top of the hill there you see one of the biggest colonies also, the West Bank, which started
In the early 1970s.
It's called Gilo colony. And you see the wall how it goes in zigzag all around. And the land behind it, and on this part of
The land belongs to the Armenian church.
so this was the playgrounds. This is the checkpoint of Bethlehem. And
Palestinians who have permits only can pass through this checkpoint. So if a Palestinian from the West Bank who with a Palestinian ID gets a permit, its only way is through these specific checkpoints. They cannot come from any other point.
And so these are some of the murals that were built. As you see, 66% of the population in Amman camp are children under 18 years old. And the streets, as you see also, are narrow. Houses are close to each other. There is about
750 families living in Aida refugee camp.
this is just facing the school and just behind the wall. And it was done by the children during many acts of demonstrations. So this is actually the building of Al-Rawal that started in 2006. And these are some of the staff. And this is the multi-purpose hall where we train theater, arts, dance, music, and so on. And sometimes we go to train trainers in
Other places. So this is in Idna, in the south of Hebron.
and working on trainers and program for
Using theater for environmental awareness. You can follow up on the images as we go along.
And all this is available on the website. There's information outside if you want to actually view this video. The commentary around it is very powerful, mashallah. And they also have samples of some of the performances they put, some of the plays, and some of the dances that they do. This is one of the tours that they did. I think this is in Europe. And inshallah, what we're going to try to do is try to get them back to the U.S. at some point to tour here locally, inshallah. What I'll do now, Shadi, if you want to just open up for questions, I think that'd be the best thing.
We can go ahead and take questions. If you have any. Yeah.
Can you give us some statistics on poverty, on education, on all kinds of social issues, economical issues? Also, if you can also talk about the significance of the camp.
Refugee camps, as I said earlier, are rented land for 99 years. They were rented by UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, to host the 2/3 of Palestinian people who became refugees in 1948. And most of them, of course, most of these refugees, Muslim or Christian, did not end in refugee camps. So it was like the most diminished finally who ended in these refugee camps. And refugee camps are under the umbrella of UNRWA. So they are not
Can you tell them what UNRWA means?
UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And so they are not part of the city in the sense that we do not vote for municipal elections, we do not receive municipality services. We are considered as guests even on the government where we are. So there is 19 refugee camps in the West Bank, 8 in Gaza, 10 in Jordan, 10 in Syria, and 12 in Lebanon. And the land was rented either from government or from Waqf, whether Islamic or Christian, or from private people. Aida camp belonged to 3 Christian families, for example, so the land was rented from 3 Christian families by UNRWA. Palestinians thought of the first act of resistance, in fact, was the education of the children. Almost 70% of family budgets used to go to education. So our parents did not think of going on vacation to Bahamas or Kharabah. Their main worry was how to have the money to send their children to school, to continue their education on university level and so on. So almost 70% of the family budget used to go to education. And the rest to live, but also to build a beautiful house, to say that we are here and we resist and we exist, even though it's not always a reflection of how rich the family is, how beautiful the house is, because for Palestinians it is an act of resistance. And if Israelis demolish a house, they build a new, and again more beautiful to say that we are here and we continue to be here. There is about 2,500 schools, as far as I know, in the West Bank. And these schools, of course, under the umbrella of Palestinian Authority. There are other schools in the refugee camps, 1 or 2 usually in the refugee camps, for boys and girls from 6 to 15 years old. Aida camp has only 1 school in the camp itself for boys from 10 to 15 years old, and another school rented on a rented land about half a mile from the camp, from the Greek Orthodox Church. It was rented, and it is mixed from 6 to 9 years old, and then the boys come to the camp and the girls continue till 15 years old. And after that, they continue to the city in Bethlehem or Beit Jala for high school exams. Every year we have about 40 to 50,000 children who finish their high school. Usually on education level, about 90% continue till the third grade or the 9th grade. So until 15 years old, about 70 to 75% finish their high school, and between 40 to 50, 55 continue their university education nowadays, because the unemployment rate is growing very high. And within the population that work,
official numbers are 30 to 35% unemployment rate. But within these numbers, they count that even if you work 1 month a year, then you are employed. So officially, it's not really the right number because it's about 50 to 60% unemployment rate on real grounds. In Gaza, about 70%. In Aida refugee camp, it's about 70%. So there is a lot of difficulties on that level. Refugee camps are under the umbrella of UNRWA, so in terms of health, education, and so on, it's normally the responsibility of UNRWA, but even that is not granted because until today there is no clinic in Aida refugee camp, for example. They build the schools in refugee camp, they build clinics in refugee camps which have a population of more than 10,000 people. Less than that, they have to go to a collective place in Bethlehem for the different refugee camps. I don't know if there is other statistics that, but in general, yeah.
Yes.
What are the challenges of opening projects that create jobs?
Like?
How can someone create jobs?
Well, I guess when I look at Ar-Ruwad, for example, Ar-Ruwad started with volunteers from 1998 till 2008. So the first 10 years was we didn't have any employee because mostly we didn't have any regular funding. Even until today, we don't have any regular funding, but there was not much projects and funding and so on. So when there is, it's part-time jobs. Now we have 11 full-timers and 9 part-timers. And it's one of the biggest NGOs of this type that has as much employees, in fact, because of the multiplicity and diversity of the programs that we are doing, and not because there is money for that, in fact, but because there is a need for that. So we don't have great salaries in a sense for most of these employees, but it's because there is a need. The supportive education program for children who have difficulties in learning have 2 full-timers actually, but at a certain time there was 10 full-time employees because there was a project and funded through Islamic Relief, for example, UK for 2 years. So it shifts on this sense. In the camp itself, about 18% are employed in the Palestinian Authority or UNRWA, in administration, health, education, in Palestinian Authority also on the level of security and police and so on. There are entrepreneurs, so building, construction, electricity, plumbery, and so on, carpentry. There is about 18 grocery shops in Aida refugee camp, 2 small restaurants, falafel, hummus, etc. So people create some jobs. There is 4 new second-hand clothes and items that are sold. These are things that are new, which were not, for example, 5-6 years ago. The second-hand shops and so on, for example. Some people, of course, and unfortunately because of the poverty, children go to sell, I don't know, chewing gum or sweep the cars, clean the glass of the cars and so on, or sell coffee or tea on the sidewalk in the streets, or some sell vegetables or fruits, the villagers and peasants mostly. So it's really wide open on different possibilities. We have one of the training programs in embroidery and sewing, for example, where there is about 30 women working, and
we have a gift shop, so it's part of like generating funds for these families. When there is international delegations, sometimes we offer them possibility to have a Palestinian meal, and this is cooked by Palestinian families, so they are paid as something that people have an experience of eating Palestinian, not in a restaurant, but a family meal. And also the family is living, earning their living in dignity and not begging for money and so on. So, it's wide range of possibilities. One of the hopes for us with the Play Bus programs is to, as I said, build a facility where we can manufacture games with Palestinian Arab identity. So this would give job for about 10 people, which can produce games that reflects our culture and identity. They could be used for, and eventually sold for kindergartens and schools, instead of these games that are manufactured in Israeli colonies or imported from different countries which do not relate to our culture or our identity in any way. And so hopes continue, and also difficulties continue, unfortunately, because culture and arts are among the least served in terms of funding on governmental level or in donors level.
Any other questions for anyone? Yes, please.
How's the morale of the youth today? Have they resigned themselves forever? Are they still hoping for
The morale of the youth.
Yeah, I guess the Zionist ideology was that the old will die, the young will forget. Well, a lot of the old died and the young did not forget. One of the simple things, I guess, about the occupation, it is still going on. And at every moment in our life, we are reminded that we are under occupation, that whoever wants to go wherever, import, export, or even fall in love or getting married, is in one way or the other affected by the occupation. And so the morals are, with this challenge, people cannot give up. People cannot just get used to it, because it's not possible to get used to oppression and occupation and the humiliation on a daily basis and say, I am fine with it. And even if an animal, you put it in a corner and you hit him, then he will attack you one day or the other. And for a human being, it's again much more frustrating all the time. So there is a lot of revolt in some of these young people. There is a lot of revolt even against their parents, against the authority, because they see that nothing is changing. And those who are supposed to protect them, when the father is put to be undressed in front of his children by a soldier, an Israeli soldier, or a woman cannot go to the hospital, or people give birth at the checkpoints and children are dying at the checkpoint, or sick people are dying at the checkpoint. This cannot leave people indifferent in any way, and cannot let them get used to it in any way. So that's why I guess people become stronger in their belief of resistance and non-acceptance of these continuous realities that the Israeli occupation creates on the ground. In the same time, giving opportunities for them to be more creative and positive in their way, and not think that the only way is to kill oneself or explode themselves. Because we want to see our children alive, and we want to see them change the world and create miracles and live the day where they, inshallah, bury us and not the other way around. So it's a lot of challenge for us, especially like in Aida, where the occupation is still present in everything and incursions happen. In 2013 alone, there has been more than 150 young people arrested by the Israeli army. There has been more than 60 young people injured by Israeli bullets and tear gas canisters. And there has been 3 young people killed by the Israeli army. So every instant of our life is ridden by these incursions and confrontation with a system of occupation. But again, when you are given a chance to play, to have fun, you see the children. And when you go to school, you see the children. And when they enjoy a meal, the children are children. So they did not break this spirit of humanity that we have. And they did not break us from inside. They did not break this soul that we keep. And they did not kill this reclamation of our return to our original homes and villages. And these all the rustics that, for those that do or do not exist anymore, are still in the houses of these families and are still transmitted from parent to child to grandchild and so on.
We'll take. It's already actually past 9 o'clock, so we'll just take one last question, inshallah, and then we'll wrap it up with yeah. So just.
I guess.
So the sister just asked, amidst all of this, everything that's their very stressful situation, how is it that somebody is able to maintain their sanity in that type of environment?
I guess it's not easy for anybody to be the same, and people have different possibilities to act or react against an injustice or against an oppression. And the worst thing that people could have is to despair and think, as I said, the only way is to explode oneself or kill oneself or carry a gun and shoot everybody else. And so for me, as a Palestinian, as a human being, as a Muslim, as an educator, as a Christian, as whatever you are as a human being, how can we inspire? How can we keep the hope going on in all of this? As I said, we don't have this luxury of despair. So if we despair, then everything is finished. Yani the basic concept of Islam, وَلَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. So if we despair from rahmatillah, or from the possibility that we can make a change that we can be proud of, or inspire these young people to stay alive and keep their faith in the values that we share as human beings, then it's the end. It's the winning of an oppression. It's the winning of an occupation and an apartheid system. And keeping the hope going on. And when you look at these children and see them running around and have fun and so on, it's for them. It's one day, if they come and look in my face, if now or in 10 years or 20 years, inshallah, and tell me, what did you do to make a change? What heritage are you leaving us? What shall I say? Shall I fade in shame and say, well, I thought Obama would do it? Or shall I be proud and say, I did something? It's maybe not big, it did not probably change the world, but surely it did make a change for some people. And that's the thing, I guess, which keeps me going. And that's the thing which make me decide to quit my main jobs in biology and so on, and think that my place is maybe with these young people. And that we can be doing something that we can be proud of, and not for others to do the things. We have to do them, and hopefully others will join. And not just wait and say, oh great, what you are doing, keep going, and we go to eat pizza or hamburger or whatever. So that's why I guess it's a way to share with others and hopefully involve others in this continuous beautiful resistance that we are doing and keeping the hope alive.
I guess Ahmed.
Jazakallah khairan. I just wanted to end, inshallah, for today's program and wanted to share with you one personal reflection from our time, a very brief time, I should say, that was spent in the camp and actually at the school. The day before the group left the school, the children actually put on a play for us. And the play itself was one of the most powerful expressions that I've seen, especially given the fact that they were kids. They were no older than maybe 12, 13 years old. The play, and it was in Arabic, and there was they had music kind of in the background, and I wasn't able to follow it completely in Arabic, but you could see through the theatrics that were being performed what was being done. And the play essentially, I just summarize it for everyone to know kind of what's the message that was really being portrayed. Was a play of 3 Palestinian families and a soldier that keeps trying to divide them. They keep trying to push them away. They keep trying to put barriers in between the family. And every time the family comes together, or these Palestinians come together as a group to overpower the soldier overpowers them. And this happens multiple times throughout the course of the play, except for the last time, in which the group comes together, overpowers. Really, by overpower, I don't mean that they physically did anything, but that they just asserted their presence to a point in which the soldier fell down and stayed down on the ground. And the Palestinians went to the corner and they looked out proudly at the land that they had and the victory that they had. And they stared there for about a few seconds, and one of them turned around and saw the soldier on the ground and goes to the soldier to lift her up and bring her with them. And arm in arm, they all look towards the future together. That is a very powerful message that's being sent to the children at Rawat and in other places. That this is about humanity. It's not about division. It's not about land. It's not about all this other stuff. This is about, as I mentioned in the khutbah today, the Prophet ﷺ, his entire mission can be dwindled down to one statement. He was sent to benefit humanity and to protect them from harm. So through the work that Al-Rawat is doing, we hope, inshallah ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses Dr. Abdul Fattah, his family, and the school, and all of the people who are in that situation in the Aida refugee camp, and actually in any of those types of situations around the world. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them ease. We thank you again for the opportunity to share your experiences with us, and we hope and pray that this will be a continuous relationship, inshallah, as you come back and visit the States. Again, for anybody who's interested in more information, we have information on the table outside. We'll go ahead and end with dua. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. O our Lord, grant us the best in this world and the best in the next world, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. O our Lord, grant us spouses and children that will be the comfort of our eyes and make us leaders of the righteous. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِوَالِدِينَ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابُ. O Allah, forgive us and our parents and all of the believers in Yawm al-Qiyamah. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا بِالْإِيمَانِ. O Allah, forgive us and those who have died before us in faith. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And erase from our hearts any ill feelings towards others. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. O our Lord, indeed you are most merciful, most forgiving, and we ask that you send peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, his companions, his wife, his family, and indeed upon all of the believers. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر